Welcome, everyone, to episode 31 of Three in the Keystone. I'm Adam Seltzer. I'm alongside Chris Guest and Al Ryan, and we have a special episode for you tonight. We are days away from Super Bowl 57, the Eagles and the Chiefs. And we talked amongst ourselves for all our loyal listeners, and we said, you've watched a bunch of Eagles games the entire season, if you're a Philadelphia sports fan, 17, 18, 19 games at this point. If you listen to us, you've listened to us talk about the Eagles through August, September, October, November, December, January, 5-6 months of Eagles talk. You know how we feel about it. You know where we stand. How can we give you guys additional insight on the games and what's going on? And what we've done is for segment 1 and segment 2 tonight is we brought on some Chiefs media, and specifically for segment 1, we have Charles Robinson, who's a writer at Arrowhead Addict. Charles, welcome to the show. We are happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm excited to see the Philly perspective of the game and get to hopefully keep the gloves on in this episode.
Absolutely. So I guess we'll throw the ball right to you. What is the feeling in Kansas City on a scale of 1 to 10? Where's the confidence level coming into the game? And what's the vibe out there like?
Oddly enough, and this has kind of been the consensus with everyone that I've talked to, whether it's, the guys and girls at Arrowhead Addict, whether it's my buddies that I have several Chiefs group chats with, even just the general vibe around the city. I mean, I think this is of the last three of the last 4 years that we've been in it, I think this is by far the most relaxed that the fan base has been going into a Super Bowl, and not from like a false bravado or confidence standpoint, because I think everybody knows damn well that the Eagles are a hell of an opponent, and this is going to be. I think it's a toss up of a game. Honestly, like either team could win easily, and you could convince me that either team could win in a blowout. I wouldn't be surprised. Either team could win a close game. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's one of those games where the teams are so similar that I think, it's kind of one of those, may the best man win type scenarios. And I think the fan base is just a little, excited to see a great game and excited to play a great opponent in Philly. And yeah, I think, underneath, we really hope that there's no need for the light poles to be greased on Broad Street, but it's one of those things that like we'll tear down downtown KC too if we win. So maybe not as crazy as some Philly fans, but we know how to party here in KC too. So I think it's relaxed. I think there's definitely a quiet confidence about Chiefs fans just from the all year long, when Tyreek Hill got traded and when the AFC West stacked up and the Bills signed Von Miller and the Bengals revamped their offensive line, it's kind of been, it's almost been like this chip on the shoulder of Chiefs fans and the team, it seemed too, that everyone's passed us up, right? We're not going to win the AFC West because Denver got Russell Wilson and the Raiders traded for Devontae Adams and the Chargers got Khalil Mack to go with Joey Bosa and then got JC Jackson as well. I think, it's kind of been one of those things where people have kind of doubted us a little bit all year. So, it's nothing new if we're getting doubted going into the Super Bowl, but they found a way to make it happen all the way up until this point. So why not now?
Charles, I think you raised a great point there too, as far as the respect factor with both these teams. And you just hit it right on the head. The amount of disrespect that both teams have had to endure through this year has been a lot. And aside from that, having that in common, we also both are fans of teams that beat the 40-winers this year, which is also good. Those guys are still and women are still talking. What is it now? How many days are we now? 9 days past the game. Still
it's been a while
on Twitter, still whining and saying that, well, Bernie, if we had a quarterback, we would have did it. Look, you didn't have one because the Eagles knocked them out. But nonetheless, but I think that's a very, very valid point about the disrespect. There was one of the hosts on this show that was disrespectful to the Chiefs preseason. I won't mention names, but
not me.
But
that's okay. I mean, you're not alone.
Listen, I was high on the Chiefs this year. I thought that the Eagles schedule and the Chiefs schedule, listen, as far as disrespect is concerned, a lot of folks on the outside of both franchises have thrown that against us, right? I think the Chiefs have had fans from other markets say that they didn't play anybody. The Eagles have had people from other markets say we didn't play anybody. But I think the fact of the matter is, it's the NFL. You still got to get into the ring. You still got to come out the ring with the W. And both teams have found a way to do that 16 out of the 19 games they played. No one else can say that. And so because of that, the two best teams in the NFL, and really from out the gate this year, week one, have been the Chiefs and the Eagles. And I think that there's, even if as an outsider, if I was not a fan of the Eagles or Mahomes or the Chiefs or anything like that, I'd be happy to and look forward to see this game this season.
I've heard a lot of that, Chris, lately in the last, maybe not, listen, not for a long time, but in the last few days, I've heard a lot of some of the national media turning around and saying that they are happy. We got the two best teams. We did.
Absolutely.
When all is said and done. And Charles, it's funny that you talk about the quiet confidence in Kansas City, because I sit here and I'm a little uncomfortable because of the comfort level that I have in as far as my quiet confidence in the Eagles.
Same.
And yeah,
I
right?
feel the same way.
And I think that this city has really, really started to believe in this team as being the favorite to win this Super Bowl. And that belief started a while back. And that's an uncomfortable position for Philadelphia fans. And it seems like for some Kansas City fans too. So that to me adds an extra interesting wrinkle, at least for the fan bases in this game.
So
Yeah.
I think that leads to a good segue is, since we both have the quiet confidences, let me throw it to Charles first. Charles, if I had to ask you what concerns you coming into this game as a confident fan, what are the aspects of the matchup that concern you going in?
There's two answers to this question. The first one and most glaring one is injuries on our side. I mean, you guys saw the AFC Championship game when at the end of it we were playing with, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Sky Moore, and then a special teamer. Marcus Kemp was our third wide receiver. Juju was out. Kadarius Toney was out. Mecole Hardman was out, and he won't play in the Super Bowl. So, I mean, write that one off. But or is doubtful to play officially. They put him back on the IR yesterday, but I mean, he won't. I don't think he'll play. Injuries are a big concern. Willie Gay on the defensive side. L'Jarius Sneed went down with a concussion against the Bengals, but he actually cleared protocol yesterday. And Mahomes' ankle is the elephant in the room. We'll see how that goes. But I think with the way he was able to play against Cincy, and then 2 weeks to kind of rest it, I think he'll maybe not 100%, but hopefully like 95. I think 95% of Patrick Mahomes, a lot of fan bases would take. But injuries are a big concern. Obviously, you want to be able to field your best team, but our tackles against the Eagles edge guys. I mean, if Mahomes isn't mobile, and you guys led the league in sacks by you guys were number one in the league in sacks. I think we were number two in the league in sacks, but it wasn't really close between
15,
1 and 2.
70 to 55 was the
Yeah,
close.
right. So I mean, you guys can get to the QB, whether it's Graham or Reddick or whoever. I mean, you guys can rush the passer and make a quarterback's life tough. And our tackles this year, Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley particularly, have not been that great. Obi Jr. has been better in like the back third of the season. He kind of picked up his game, but Wiley has been suspect. So I would imagine that the Chiefs will probably throw a little bit of like 2 and 3 tight sets at the Eagles to try to kind of establish the run game up front to get those guys on their heels a little bit. Hopefully, because I think one of the weaknesses of the Eagles defense this year has been the run defense a little bit. And if there's one strength of our offensive line, it's guard, center, guard. So I would expect the Chiefs to do that. But man, if the Eagles pin their ears back and get after Mahomes, and it could be tough. I mean, it could be not exactly like that Tampa Super Bowl, because we didn't have tackles in that Tampa Super Bowl. That was that was tough. But I mean, our tackles are susceptible to the rush, and that could be a problem. That's probably my biggest concern outside of injuries.
Knowing Andy Reid from his years here and having watched him called plays for years, I really think you're going to get a heavy dose of screens early in the game to put the Eagles pass rushers on their heels a little bit, let them get upfield and then dump a couple passes over their head, whether it's McKinnon or Pacheco. Or even Kelsey, some of these, those tight end screens that they'll run or those shovel passes. I think you're going to see a lot of that, especially early in the game, to try and establish, or just to get those, those edge rushers to be a little less aggressive coming around the corner. That's my thought, at least.
Yeah, listen, this guy is pretty much unanimously hated on in Chiefs Kingdom, but don't count out Clyde Edwards-Helaire having a little bit of an impact too, because that guy, he's not, not the best first round pick that Brett Veach has ever made by any means. But the one thing that Clyde can do, and he was activated off the IR yesterday, the one thing that Clyde can do, he can get open in very small portions of the field. So inside the 10, inside the 5, where you think it's like either run or you're going to be a shotgun pass, you can go under center and Clyde can find a way to get behind that line and get open. So I wouldn't be surprised if he does play to kind of see some goal line action and potentially, you guys talked prop bets, I guess, with someone else, but a Clyde Edwards-Helaire anytime touchdown might not be a bad prop bet on Sunday night.
I'm sure you can get a good number on it too.
Probably can.
So, Chris, what do you think? What are your concerns looking at Kansas City from your end?
Pat Mahomes.
What did you say?
Pat Mahomes.
Took the words out of my mouth. That's it.
I mean, that's really.
It's not simple.
Anytime you play the Chiefs.
That's like the old principle on a multiple choice test. If you just pick C, you're probably going to be right.
Yep.
Pat Mahomes. He's a solid answer.
As much as we've debated on this show throughout the year, as far as if Hurts had a chance to steal the MVP this year, even if he did, Mahomes is still pound for pound overall the best quarterback still in football. And anytime you have a weapon like that, even like you said, 95%, 90%, even 80% healthy, he's still dangerous. As long as his arm is intact, he's dangerous. And, as a defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon's got to be up probably every night for the last, 9 days now at this point, thinking about creative ways to throw something at Mahomes and at the Chiefs that they haven't seen yet. Will he be successful? Obviously, time will tell. We'll see on Sunday night. But Mahomes is always number one. And then I would say the next thing would be obviously Kelsey. But the Eagles, we talked about this last night too with Chris Style. The Eagles have been pretty good this year against tight ends. They have not had big games against them with tight ends this year. Obviously, Travis Kelsey is a different animal than most guys at that position in the league, but they do have the personnel to combat a guy like him. But nonetheless, I mean, Mahomes, you guys haven't had this stack of receivers that you have this year isn't as good as in years past, in my opinion, but you're still where you're at. And that's because of number 15. And so he's always the one that you're going to lose sleep over if you're an opponent.
And to add to your point, Chris, we touched on in the beginning the strength of schedule and who'd you play and wins in the NFL or wins in the NFL. But the Eagles team has not seen a quarterback close to Patrick Mahomes' status the entire season. So it'll be a test on that defensive end for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
This battle in the trenches is going to be an all-time matchup. It's one that every football fan is looking forward to in a way that I've never experienced before. When you talk to anybody, they know. And so if we know, man, Andy is trying to get one up ahead of Jonathan Gannon. Gannon's trying to get one up ahead of Andy and so on and so on. And so I think we're going to see a lot of things that this game's going to have to be won there. But another place where this game's going to be won, I believe, is the red zone. And that's because both of these teams are dangerous as hell in the red zone. The Eagles on the ground, who have scored 18 touchdowns between Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders this year in the red zone, and Kansas City through the air in the red zone. Pat Mahomes has thrown for 41 touchdowns this season. 34 of those came inside the 20-yard line. That's an incredible number. That's a league high. Travis Kelsey, 10 touchdowns in the red zone, another league high. So if you get either of these teams inside that 20-yard line, now that's when all bets are off. I mean, what's going to happen when we're in the red zone here, fellas? Because also on the other end of that, Kansas City's red zone defense isn't too great either. No. They've given up touchdowns about 66% of the time in the red zone, which was good for only 30th in the league. So something's got to give. And me as a fan, I'm looking forward to that battle in the trenches, but I'm looking forward to the red zone too, because I want to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, and if you can, go ahead, Charles.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No, you.
So another subtle Achilles heel with the Chiefs this year has been against running quarterbacks, and I mean that sucks. I mean, Jalen Hurts could have a huge game against our defense because I mean we haven't been that great, and we're sneaky bad against the quarterback sneak. Like I can't. I was probably like 10 the last time we stopped a 4th and 1 quarterback sneak. So I mean you guys do it better than anybody. So I'm a little nervous about that.
No one stopped the Eagles sneak all year. And you know what, Charles? Don't be surprised. I've been saying it all season long. They're going to make some kind of rule against the way we sneak it, where you can't have the 2 guys in the back pushing the quarterback. They're going to make some rule against that.
Don't get me started on rule changes.
But you know what, though, Al? To be fair, I mean, in theory, a defense could do the same too. Like, there's ways a defense can get leverage and push up from the back towards the front of the line, also. But no one ever thinks to do it.
Yep.
And I'll tell you this: we mentioned it on a podcast before, and they actually did run something. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a situation like that. If you saw a wrinkle out of that formation.
Yep. A toss.
Well, we saw in the Giants game they did.
Right, it was the Giants game. They ran a little toss on that type of play. So I wouldn't be surprised if you saw something along those lines. But Charles, let me ask you this: for our Eagles listeners who didn't watch a whole bunch of the Chiefs this year, and they want to sound smart going to their Super Bowl party, outside of Mahomes and Kelsey, and I'm even going to take Chris Jones off the table because I think he became a little more of a household name this past week.
Yeah,
I know that's who you were going to go with.
Nah, maybe. But
who is the most important player on the Chiefs outside of those 3 guys?
Outside of those 3 guys, I mean, I think you have to it's the playoffs, and the guy that I'm going to mention moved into 3rd all-time. He's either 2nd or 3rd all-time now. I can't remember if he moved all the way up to 2nd last game, but Frank Clark is notoriously good at getting after the quarterback in the playoffs. He's probably not the most important, though. The most important player that you guys have to watch out for in this game with your running game, the way that the best running game in football, our middle linebacker, number 32, Nick Bolton, was 2nd in the league in tackles this year. He is a tackling machine. He can't cover for shit. So, I mean, if you guys try to pick on him in the passing game, you'll probably pick up some chunks of yardage, but he's going to be huge in helping stifle the Eagles running game. And I mean, he could, we could look up and in the 3rd quarter, he could have 14 tackles, and I would not be surprised by any means. So I think Nick Bolton, as far as, defending the run against Philly, is going to be the biggest piece of the puzzle for KC, because if he has a great game, it's going to be tight right down to the wire. If he's out there missing tackles and whiffing, then we're probably down a couple scores going into halftime. So,
yeah, I actually really like Nick Bolton a lot. I think he was a Missouri guy, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think.
MIZ.
Yeah, and I think he had I want to say maybe 180 tackles this year total, 190 tackles, something
like that. He was only behind. I can't remember the guy's name, but a linebacker from the Jags was tops, and Nick Bolton was 2nd in tackles in the league,
or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
No, he's a really, really good player. I'm not surprised at all that you brought him up, because he pops on tape when you watch the Chiefs games. Like, he's all over the place.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, he's a stud.
Did you have any questions for us from the Chiefs side that you guys are concerned about?
Yeah, so I'm curious. Obviously, we look at the game from our perspective, and we know what our strengths are. And having played you guys last year, you can't take anything from the game last year because it's 2 completely different teams. You guys reloaded over the offseason, and I mean, the personnel moves you guys made last offseason, it's like, shit, Philly's going to be for real, and here we are in the Super Bowl. But what do you guys see as matchups on Sunday that you think favor the Eagles?
Al, you want to take it?
I'll go first. I wrote a couple of things down, but I'm gonna pick just one here, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit, Charles, I believe. I think that if Jalen Hurts, and there's question marks surrounding his ability to throw the ball right now because of the shoulder injury, because he hasn't looked sharp. His accuracy numbers have been down in the last month or so. However, if he can get things going through the air, I think that the Eagles are primed to pick on some of these young corners, young defensive backs on the Kansas City Chiefs. L'Jarius Sneed's a good player. He's coming off of a concussion. I mean, I'm sure there's a little bit of worry about him. Jalen Watson, Trent McDuffie, both rookies. I mean, you got a guy in AJ Brown, you got a guy in Devontae Smith that know how to run routes, they know how to get open. And I think if Jalen can make a couple of throws early, maybe a couple of slants, a couple of screens, open up the deep part of the field, I think it could be a long day for those guys, especially with how balanced our offense can be with the Miles Sanders, with the Kenny Gainwell, with Jalen using his legs. It just presents so many opportunities for Shane Steichen and that Eagles offense to really just pick apart Kansas City on the defensive side. And if you look at the 3 losses for Kansas City this year, look, I'm not, this isn't rocket science. They lost the turnover battle and they lost the time of possession battle. If we can keep Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce off the field, it's probably going to be a good day for the Eagles. So, in my opinion, obviously you got to run the ball to do that, but I'd like to see them attack those young defensive backs.
And I'll flip it, actually. I will go on the other side of the ball. And this is where we talked. I remember when we played the Giants in the divisional round, there was a lot of talk about the Giants were hot and Daniel Jones, this and that. At the end of the day, the Eagles have 2 all-pro corners in Bradbury and Slay. And if they can, match up on the outside, and the Eagles do play a decent amount of zone, but if they're able to take Valdez-Scantling and Tony out of the game by themselves and allow the safeties to focus on Travis Kelce and being able to bracket on that side and be able to single coverage on the outside with those cornerbacks, that's going to be a huge advantage for the Eagles if those guys are able to do it. Now, again, it's different having Patrick Mahomes throw the ball to single coverage than it is having Daniel Jones throw the ball to single coverage because of the tight pockets that he's going to be able to fit the ball
a little bit.
But there's a part of you that has to be able to trust those corners on the outside to shut down those type of receivers. Again, it's not Tyreek Hill out there. It's not Deebo Samuel. Those are guys that you're paying Darius Slay and James Bradbury to be able to cover. That's my thought on it. And you have to, use your safety help on Travis Kelce.
And to piggyback off that, Seltzer, I was going to say the same thing about the secondary for the Eagles. Having Avonte Maddox and CJ Gardner-Johnson back in the fold for this deep playoff run here has been important, like huge. The Eagles were ranked against slot receivers slot formations were 27th in the league when Maddox was out. They're number 1 with Maddox in the lineup. So that's a huge jump for that secondary and a boost for that defense overall. So I think, and Gardner-Johnson being back and being able to have versatility on that defense, being able to play safety if need be, coming up into the box to help out against the run, help out as a dime corner potentially. All those kind of things you can do with Gardner-Johnson. He's looking to get the bag too after this year, so he's been locked in pretty good all season long. Led the league in interceptions, or tied for the lead in interceptions, and that was with missing how many games he missed, 5-6 games. So I think those two are very, you could argue, equally as important as Bradbury and Darius Slay.
Yeah, and I want to mention one other thing. Charles, you mentioned health as one of your main concerns for the Chiefs. I saw a stat on Twitter today, and I don't know how many times this has happened, but on opening day this year, the Eagles started obviously 11 guys on offense, 11 guys on defense. The same 22 guys will be starting in the Super Bowl. And I'm not sure how many teams in the history of the Super Bowl have been able to throw the same 22 starters out there from week 1 to the end of the year. They've been very, very lucky with health for the majority of the season. Again, we have the Hurts injury, which is lagging on. We have a couple sources inside the team that says he's fine. It's just a matter of stiffness and, there's no structural damage or anything of that matter. And Lane's going to be playing, with an injury, but for the most part, they've been pretty healthy for the majority of the season, which has helped with their dominance.
Yeah, for sure. So is CD Deuce? You guys think he's going to try to fight anybody on the Chiefs, or is that just a Mike Evans thing?
Hey man, I'll tell you what. I like the Chiefs a lot, and honestly, any other team, I'd be all in rooting for you guys in this game. Of course, you had to play the one team that I'm going to go against you, but I will say, as much as I like and respect the Chiefs, Juju Smith-Schuster has got to be one of the biggest tools in the NFL. Like, that dude, I watched the media night last night. What a clown! Oh my God. I was just like,
I'll,
what is this guy even like? What is he even talking about?
I'll give you that. So that's like Juju. Juju is one of those guys that before he came to KC, I was like, come on, dude. Like,
Right.
what a clown. Like all about TikToks and all that stuff, which,
Dance and
whatever. I
all
mean,
that. Yeah.
I get sucked into TikTok wormholes from time to time. It happens to the best of us. But I didn't really think that I would embrace him that much, but I he plays pretty tough. I mean, he's whatever he does off the field, it's one of those things where, if he's your guy, you kind of ignore it a little bit. But I did not. I was not a fan when he was in Pittsburgh. I'm not going to lie about that. But also, I'll say this: when Travis Kelce was younger, back in the Alex Smith years, and he was Travis kind of had an attitude back in the day. There's the famous I think it's now like probably one of the more used gifs in the sports world where playing Denver and he walks up to the ref and he does the little, that motion. I mean, I wasn't, I always said if Travis Kelce was not a Chief, I wouldn't be a big fan of him. Well, that's obviously changed. Now he's one of my favorite players of all time. But I mean, there's definitely guys that if they're not on your team, you're like, yeah, whatever, I could do without them. But, I'll ride with Juju for now. When he's gone, I'll go back to hating on him too.
Well, and that's the ironic thing about it is, like he's a really good player. Like
I don't know what
He
really
is,
he's all
yeah.
right.
I think he's a good player.
He
I
never
think
met his
he's a
potential, I
valuable
feel like.
player for a team. I'm not saying he's a true number one on every team, but he's a really good player to have. But off the field, it just seems like I don't know, man. Like I remember with the Pittsburgh situation, especially like him, Claypool, those guys were just clown city, man.
Yeah.
So
Well, they were definitely childish for sure. I think I don't know. I think being I haven't seen, this is probably like a homeristic slant on my end, but I haven't thought it has been as bad this year. I think he's obviously in a locker room that, has a winning culture and there's a lot of leaders in that room. So I think he probably has to fall in line
definitely
a little bit
yeah.
with some of the stuff he's done in the past. But, I mean,
And to be fair, look who we had to learn from, right?
yeah,
Antonio Brown was probably his number one
Right.
receiver.
right. Yeah. I mean, you would think that Tomlin would be able to keep a locker room, in check and a guy like that in check. But, when you got AB and you got Le'Veon Bell doing shit like they were doing back in the day, it's like, sometimes you just got to kind of cut bait on some of those guys and move on and rebuild it. And I think that's what Pittsburgh's doing right now.
Yeah, and they've done a pretty good job of it.
Wait, while we're on I have to know this from a Kansas City guy. How do you deal with Mahomes' brother and wife? How do you guys deal with them?
So
One thing, they're too much.
Okay. So this year, I don't know what conversations happened behind closed doors, and I won't pretend to know, but they have had a much more muted presence in the public eye this year than they've had in years past. I think obviously everyone saw like last year, the year before. Listen, I can't talk shit on the Queen of Kansas City. And this is Patrick Mahomes' internet too. So it was a little much, man. And Jackson with his stuff, he got, this is a more local story. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but he got dragged by a local bar here in Kansas City because he walked in. This is probably close to like eight months to a year ago. Went into a bar in KC, like a lounge type place. And I guess like raised hell because they wouldn't seat him and some of his friends. So this bar posted on their social media like, hey, sorry we couldn't let you in, and basically called him entitled and a baby and all this stuff. And it caught fire here in KC. So
I remember
after that, I think he kind of was like, okay, maybe I need to reel this in a little bit. But
is she pregnant?
No, she just had their second kid. So they had their daughter's like 2 or 3, and then their son was just born like 4 or 5 months ago, something like that. But yeah, I think during the season, but it was actually right before our regular season game with the Bengals when the kid was born. So it was 2 months ago. But I'm actually strategizing because my first child was on the way in the end of April, and I'm trying to figure out how do I position my kid to get into like youth sports with Mahomes' kid. Like, how do I make them friends? I played center in college. Mahomes is a quarterback, so it
There you go.
it stands to reason that my kid could potentially be Mahomes' kid's center, to Mahomes' kid's quarterback. So, that's
Guess,
hashtag
guess,
goals.
guess that's some fantasy dynasty league.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, worst case scenario, they're friends, and my kid just makes Mahomes' kid laugh, and he's like, "Hey, dude, you want to come over and come over and sleep over or
Just
whatever?"
hang out at the crib.
I'll drop him off at Mahomes' house. Be like, "What's
Yeah,
up,
man.
Pat? What's going on?" He's like, "Hey, cool, man. Just come pick him up tomorrow morning. See you, dude."
Yeah.
Don't loiter.
I love that.
Let me ask you. I'm gonna ask you something real quick too, Charles. I'm just curious, because everything that you've gone through as a Chiefs fan with the Bengals and their fan base, have they reached the status of hatred that you would have for Vegas or Denver, or even, dare I say, the Chargers? Even though I don't know if even division teams even can hate the Chargers because their base is so weak, but
Yeah, you can't.
yeah, have they reached like that seriousness yet?
It's funny you asked that because I was on with some guys from Green Bay last week on their show, and they asked me. Actually, they didn't ask me during the podcast. We were just kind of riffing afterwards, and I was telling them, the Broncos and Raiders are still like right here. That's like the gold standard of animosity. I don't like to call it hate because I don't hate them. Like, I don't want, I may call Derek Carr, in the past, I called Derek Carr every name in the book and be like, be extremely negative towards him. I don't hate him. I don't wish any of those guys get hurt or anything like that. But if they're there, since he's like right here, I mean, it's right there now. And, before all of the Burrowhead bullshit and like the mayor and all that stuff, the week leading up to the AFC Championship game, it was kind of one of those things where like you have this strong burning desire to really to beat them, and it became a heated rivalry because we hadn't won yet. Then when they started that, it was like, okay, man, like you had to go there. And after last year's AFC Championship game, their fans were terrible to deal with. I mean, Twitter is the worst place on earth. So
No, it really
if
is.
you spend too much time there, you're gonna get a little jaded. But yeah, man. I mean, when Mike Hilton and Eli Apple's always been a clown, but when Mike Hilton started doing the Burrowhead stuff, and Joe Burrow is a fantastic player, but he kind of rubs me the wrong way. Just like, I think he's an arrogant guy. He's our window is my whole career. Like,
right.
Well, but you're counting on them paying you, dude. And the Bengals have never paid anybody, so I don't really know what you think you're going to get there. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm glad we beat them. I can't stand them. Yeah, they're right there. I'd say the Raiders have been so insignificant for so long that I think it would have to go Broncos, Raiders, and Bengals at this point.
This sounds like Eagles Vikings kind of.
Oh yeah,
I don't know. San Fran might have passed Minnesota.
Hey, you can't get over the San Fran stuff, dude.
I hate
Vikings fans
those
are
people.
Speaking of Chargers, those fans that got under Joey Bosa's skin, I loved watching that so much. He is that was fantastic.
What a hothead. Like he could have exploded in that moment. Like that dude who was talking that shit could have got if there wasn't security there and the family there, that could have ended poorly.
Yeah.
You got a fat check with it too.
No, big check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bud Light cherry.
Bosa can pay it. Yeah, what was that? Yeah, but like, come on, man. I mean, he can pay it, obviously. He's talking about how rich he was, so good for him, man.
Couple of really good pass rushers with some pretty hot heads. But let's get down to business and wrap this thing up. Let's get to predictions, and we'll go Al, and then we'll go me, and then we'll go guest, and then we'll go Charles to wrap it up. You guys good with that?
Oof. I gotta go last.
Yeah, the Chiefs guy always goes last. Eagles guys go first.
All right.
This is what we're gonna do. Charles, all right, cool. If you pick the Chiefs, we're just gonna cut you out of the segment.
Yeah. Makes the edit very easy. Yeah, I get that.
All right. Listen, I won't say a whole lot because I think we've all said it pretty well. Personally, I just see a lot of areas where the Eagles are better than the Chiefs. And the biggest thing that the Chiefs have is Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce, which are two very big things to have. And then I feel like the Eagles just have everything else. I like our run game against Kansas City's run D. I like our pass game against Kansas City's pass D. I like our D line. I like our O line. I just like a lot of these battles that you have to win in the Super Bowl to win a Super Bowl. So look, we win the battle up front. We knock Mahomes around. We make him uncomfortable, and then we run the ball and eat the clock. And that's, I think, the recipe to success. So with that said, something always weird happens in the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with a weird score. And I got Eagles 25-23.
Okay.
It's a weird score.
All right. Eagles 25-23 from Al. So for me, listen, I've been going back and forth for a week. And one day I wake up, I feel Eagles. Another day I wake up, I feel Chiefs. I look at the position battles, and honestly, I only see 3 positions that favor the Chiefs over the Eagles, in my opinion. And that's tight end, that's quarterback, and that's coach. Unfortunately, 2 of those positions, in my opinion, are the 2 most important positions where you have quarterback and coach. So this morning I was waking up and I was leaning Chiefs. And then I was in the gym today, and the final song of my workout was Dreams and Nightmares. And I said, is this a sign? Is this a sign that the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl? But then my mind took over. I'm still taking the Chiefs 26-21 in a good game.
Oh,
Sorry, guys. You
Charles,
knew it was
just so you
coming.
know, Adam has a history of picking against the Philly team and then being wrong at the end for
To
it.
be fair, no.
Is this
I
like
picked
a
the
reverse,
Eagles
like a
and- I picked
reverse
the
jinx
Eagles over
type
the
thing?
Giants.
it is. He did it with the Phillies the entire postseason run. But
The Phillies-
Charles, wait, let's
The Phillies were
clarify.
shtick. That was shtick.
Let's clarify too. Adam was the one that picked the Chiefs to not even make the playoffs in the preseason.
Correct.
I did do that.
Not me, Adam.
Correct.
I admit to that. I did do that.
Who
But
did you
the
think
Phillies,
was going to win the division?
I had the Chargers. And listen,
Okay.
to be fair,
I was really hoping you weren't going to say Denver, dude. That would have been so
I had Denver.
embarrassing.
I had Denver in last. I had Denver in last.
Smart.
And
Okay.
I've defended myself by saying everybody thought the AFC West was going to be way better than it was. Going into
Yeah, and it was trash.
it was trash.
Yeah, ironically, we thought that the NFC, what happened in the NFC East this year was
Yeah.
going to happen in the AFC West.
Right.
Yeah, the script just got flipped.
Yeah.
Yeah. But listen, I was wrong. I ate it.
So Seltzer, what was your score again?
26-21.
Okay, so for folks that listen to this podcast, the last couple of weeks, the Giants game, I came on all gung ho, pro birds. This is going to be a blowout. I don't see I think it's a mismatch. Giants haven't beat us in forever, and that's what ended up happening. 49ers week, I got called a homer because those going to be a blowout, and it was a blowout. This week, I'm not saying that. This week, I think it is going to be a good game. I respect the hell out of the Chiefs. I respect the hell out of Pat Mahomes. I will say this: if the game is close and it's a defensive game, I think the Eagles win that game. If the game is close and it's a shootout, I think the Chiefs win that game. If Mahomes, we talked about the Eagles defense, the secondary. If Mahomes finds a way to get Valdez-Scantling and Smith-Schuster and all those guys, can you get a brother with one last name, first of all? Actually, that's another thing.
No, dude, we're the
Saying
law
all
firm.
your last names,
The
I
law
can't
firm.
keep up.
The law firm, dude. We're like Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, but
Edward
it's multiple
Hilaire,
players.
man. But all jokes aside, if Mahomes can find a way to pull off some magic and get those guys big numbers against Slay and Bradbury and Maddox and those guys, the Eagles are going to have a tough time trying to figure out how to stop that offense, and I don't think they'll be able to at that point in time. But I still feel like from week one to, well, not week one, I shouldn't say that, but from probably the middle of the season till now, the Eagles are the best team in the league. I still feel like they're going to win this game. I think it's going to be close. I would say right now, my gut would tell me 24-20 Eagles. I think that they find a way to make it a majority defensive game. But like I said, if it gets into the 30s, I think that the Chiefs are going to have the advantage.
All right. So my gut feeling here is that we're going to split 2-2, but I'll throw it to Charles to get his official word here.
No, I was actually going to say Eagles 45, Chiefs 7. So no,
Cut it.
Wrap it up. Wrap it up.
I'm just going with this reverse jinx theory that you threw out there. this is like a big like build up thing for me where, we talked earlier about how, coming into the season, trade Tyreek Hill, take Mahomes' top weapon away. People start to doubt, the AFC West loads up. People start to doubt. The Bengals add offensive line help. The Bills get Von Miller. People start to doubt, right? But what did the Chiefs do? They come out and they go 14-3. You beat Jacksonville in the divisional round with Mahomes on one leg. Chad Henne leading a heroic drive. Finally conquer the demons of the Bengals going 3-0 against you in the last calendar year to beat them in the AFC Championship game. And, throughout the course of the season, some of the biggest plays we've had on defense obviously come from guys like Chris Jones and Frank Clark and stuff like that. But you guys mentioned it earlier, the rookie corners being at a disadvantage. To this point in the year, the biggest plays, the biggest picks we've had on defense this year, the pick 6 against the Chargers in week 2 that kind of flipped the game around, the pick against Jacksonville in the fourth quarter, both those are Jalen Watson. You got Jalen Watson and Josh Williams picking off Joe Burrow last week with Brian Cook tipping the ball to Josh Williams, another rookie safety. I think this is a super tight game. I think it comes down to, Philly gets the ball back up by 3 to 4 points with a couple minutes left, and then a rookie causes Jalen Hurts to make a mistake. Mahomes gets the ball with under 2 minutes to go and does what Mahomes does. I think it's 27-24 Chiefs and an all-time classic.
Wow.
That's a great game. I know we're supposed to wrap on the predictions, but there's one name that nobody has brought up in this segment, and I want to know if there's any concern, and we could just go through it quickly. Nobody's touched on Nick Sirianni. Do we have any concerns? I mean, he's coached well in the first 2 games, but is there any chance he's overjuiced for this Super Bowl in this moment, and Andy gets the best of him?
I don't have concerns because I feel like him, Shane Steichen, and Jonathan Gannon work as a unit. And I think they do a good job of reeling each other in as a unit. Like, I see them as a three-headed monster type of deal where they trust each other. And I think that we're going to see that in the Super Bowl. There was very few games this season where, as Eagles fans, we said, what the hell are they doing as a coaching staff? The Colts game, I remember, was one out of the chute. Obviously, the Commanders' loss was one. But very few where we question this coaching staff.
That's fair. Chris?
Yeah, and I think that normally in sports, especially when it comes to like sports that have series like the NBA and baseball, things like that, experience, I think, is a huge factor. But the NFL specifically, with the winner take all format and the high turnover that we have in on rosters year to year, experience, it could, I think personally, could be a little bit overrated at times when you look at it in the NFL. I think the last time, especially for Eagles fans, we had Doug Peterson was able to slay the dragon that is Bill Belichick 5 years ago and win a title. 2 of the, I think it's the last 3 Super Bowl winners and 4 of the last 5 were head coaches that had won their first ring as head coaches. So listen, it could be Nick's time. I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, we love Andy here too. But yeah, I'm not worried about Sirianni in this game. I think he's done a really good job for the most part in the playoffs in this run. So there's nothing that's given me any kind of inclination that that's going to stop now.
All right, that's fair.
And they've got 2 weeks of preparation time too, as well, on top of that. So,
right. Charles, I know you're a huge Sirianni guy, but any insight?
Well, from an outsider's perspective, to me, I think you guys said something about Sirianni being juiced up. I think the juice is kind of what makes the Eagles this year. You guys are, I mean, like, his fire is really, really reflected in the team and the way they play. And I think, that's a little bit scary being the opponent here. And the elephant in the room, no pun intended, is that Andy Reid could still Andy Reid at some point, and you guys know exactly what that means as Eagles fans. Like we could look up with 9 minutes to go in the first quarter and have no timeouts and have already wasted our challenge. So who knows? Like, you never know what's going to happen with Andy. I mean, he tends to redeem himself, but dude, it's kind of a crapshoot. His track record is fantastic, but he does still have ways of making you say, "What are we doing here?" So
I think
time management was never his forte.
No. I think
Still,
the
isn't.
Pat Mahomes effect negates that though, because as an Eagles fan, there is no amount of time on the clock that I want to see with Pat Mahomes with the ball in his hand down one score.
Well, we
There's
saw that
no
in 21 with the Bills playoff game. How what was it, 15 seconds or whatever it was? Say he kicked down the field.
13 seconds.
Yeah, and then got a field goal to go to overtime, and then when so like you're 100% right, Al. Like there's no short of 0-0, you're always going to be nervous because anything could happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that'll wrap it up for segment 1. Charles, again, we wanted to thank you for coming out. Do you want to shout out your Twitter handle and what you have going on at Arrowhead?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can find me at CRob5769, CROB5769 on Twitter. You can obviously follow Arrowhead Addict. It's just at Arrowhead Addict, and arrowheadaddict.com. We've got a stable of fantastic writers that pumping out content all week long. And also we've got 2 guys on the ground in Arizona this week. Matt Verderam and Patrick Allen are part of Radio Row, the media coverage of the Super Bowl. So you can catch them on the Arrowhead Addict podcast on, Spotify, iTunes, however you consume your podcasts. And you can also subscribe to them on YouTube as well. So, guys, it was awesome being here. And, like we said from the beginning, it's this feels like a very gentlemanly Super Bowl. A lot of respect on both sides. And, I've felt that from you guys, and I appreciate that. And, best of luck on Sunday.
Likewise.
Good luck. Thanks for coming on, Charles.
Absolutely,
guys. Thank you.
So stay tuned. We will jump into segment 2, where we're going to have another Chiefs analyst on to talk prop bets. So if you're into that gambling feeling this Sunday, just stay tuned for some plays. Welcome back to segment 3, where we're going to veer off of football in the Super Bowl as a major trade happened in the NBA over the weekend. It came out on Friday that Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets was requesting to be traded pretty much out of nowhere. And it didn't take long for him to find a home, as Sunday he was traded to Dallas for Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, a 2029 first-round pick, and a couple of second-round picks. Now, the Kyrie Irving Brooklyn Nets fiasco has really been boiling since, I would say, the beginning of last year, with, they call the COVID restrictions and him not being able to play home games, and then Brooklyn telling him to not play road games, kind of festering over to the anti-Semitic stuff that happened earlier this year and the suspension. I guess the question really to start is, it's very easy to say Kyrie is to blame, but if you were to break this up, let's say, how many percent Kyrie, and if there was any other blame elsewhere, where would you lay that percentage of the blame in regards to how this thing ended up turning out?
I don't see how you could put much more than maybe like 5% on the Nets. Like, this is all on Irving. This is all on Kyrie. I mean, this dude's a repeat offender. He's done this time and time again. The Nets kind of did everything that was asked of them. They signed him to the deal. They put up with all the crap, his flat earth conspiracies, his Alex Jones videos. You already mentioned the anti-vax, the anti-Semitic documentary. I mean, this dude is just a walking fire. Like, he just lights a flame to every locker room that he steps into, and he can get away with it because at his best, with his talent, he's still a top 3 point guard in the league, I would say. So he gets away with it because of the potential that his skill brings to you, and that's why he's getting away with it. That's why you have Mark Cuban bringing him to Dallas. I mean, it's like getting a 2-year-old Tesla, but you look at the Carfax, and it's had 5 owners, and it's been in the shop 25 times. Well, you're going to roll the dice? I guess somebody's going to, I guess. So short answer, 95 to 100% Kyrie.
I saw a funny comparison. I like Crisco, but I saw somebody, I think it was Chris Vernon, was talking about it on his podcast today. And he goes, it's like the hot girl that's been married 4 times and been divorced so many times. And then the 5th guy comes along and he goes, yeah, but she's hot though.
Yeah.
And you always think you can change them and turn them into a housewife, the whole thing. Yeah, I think 5% is generous. I don't have any percentage, to be honest with you. I think it's 100% on Kyrie. I mean, just going back, not even with Brooklyn, but even with previously with Cleveland, with Boston, like, he's been a pathological liar, basically, when it comes to his desire to stay in these places. Everywhere he's gone, he's made the claim that he wants to stay there, wants to be there. When the rubber met the road, he always said, I don't want to be here anymore. And it never really was a clear-cut definitive, like, well, why not? It's just like, stupid little things that he finds that are issues that are probably minute or small to most other people, but to him are just magnified. And again, obviously none of us know the guy personally. All we're doing is judging off of what we see. But he's a strange dude. Like he's the kind of guy, we talked about this in the summertime, where he makes it hard to root for a guy like that, but then he won't show up for like I remember last year, I believe it was, he didn't show up for a practice. But then you find out he wasn't at a practice because he was actually coaching a high school girls basketball team at a local rec gym and this and that. So like, you're like, well, damn, that's kind of cool. But then at the same time, he goes and he does some,
I think it was a charity event he missed or something like that.
I'm sorry, the charity event. Right. You're right. And so you're like, well, that's kind of cool. But then he does something else where he'll say anti-Semitic remarks. And then you're like, never mind. The guy's a scumbag. He is what I thought he was. Boston, which we don't, obviously this show is not a fan of Boston, but he sat up there in front of those fans in a national situation in front of the media and said that, hey, give me the paperwork, I'll sign it, I'm ready to go. And basically when they did, he was like, nah, you know what, hold up, never mind, I'm good, I'm okay.
Remember what he said? He said, I don't know anybody's shit.
Right, exactly. And so you have, like you said, Al, you have the conspiracy theories, you have the vaccine situation, you have, I put in the text box that we share, like the text conversation. I'm shocked that this dude was at one point a bigwig in the player association. Like, could you imagine, Al, you being a fellow teacher, imagine in a union, you were represented by someone that had all that baggage and all those beliefs.
Nightmare.
And they're there to represent you and the rest of your crew at the school.
I'd be working summers.
You know what I mean? Like it's pretty insane. So shocked that he even got to that point. But it's sad because he's a smart guy. I think in some regards, like I said, with the whole thing with the coaching aspect, with the high school kids and things, that he has a good heart in there, but then he also has a bad heart when he talks about the anti-Semitism, going back and again lying, having an apology posted, and then going back today and deleting it. So he just never, it seems like he never sticks to his word. I don't know if he got a shorty or not, but I mean, if I was a woman dating this dude, I wouldn't trust anything he said at all. So, but yeah, I think 100% is to blame for is to blame for it.
Chris, the only reason why I was reluctant to say 100% is because I do strongly believe that he and it's majority he's brought it on to himself, but he is one of those guys that the media just won't cut a break. They're not going to cut a break. What everything he does gets so put under a microscope and polarized, and he's always the problem, no matter what it is.
But again, is that his fault though?
But that's right. That's why I opened it up by saying. But if you remember, do you remember when he was burning that sage inside of the arena? The media made it out to be this big like clown show. Like, why is he doing that? He's such a weirdo. He's such a freak. But then what they didn't report was, doesn't he do that? Like it's like an homage, like it's a tribute to his mother or something along those lines. I want to say so. Like that doesn't get reported. But they just basically clown the guy.
He had said something too about that. That's one of his beliefs in terms of getting out negative energy, and maybe his mother taught him that. Maybe that's where it came in, but it's a negative energy thing. So he went through the garden and sprayed the sage and all that.
Right. So the only 5% I have is like, a lot of guys have these weird things about them, and a lot of guys do and say messed up stuff. But when Kyrie does it, the media is going to be all over it every time. And he should, at this point in his career, I mean, he should understand that and know that, and probably keep his mouth shut about a few things. But, who am I to tell somebody to keep their mouth shut,
Let me play devil's advocate, although I'm more on the side with you guys, but let me present the counterpoint. So the Kyrie situation, obviously he becomes a unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. And the thought was that he was looking for an extension and he was negotiating with the Nets. He obviously has had a volatile relationship with Joe Tsai, who's the owner of the Nets. And apparently the contract that they offered him had really, really strange guarantees as far as his money, including that for some of it to be guaranteed, they would have to win the championship. So I don't know if we've ever seen anybody have contract guarantees along those lines. And also to add to that, if you think about the Nets organization as a whole, it was only a year ago that James Harden was like, I got to get the hell out of here. It was 8 months ago when Kevin Durant said, I want to get the hell out of here. Granted, that never ended up happening. There's got to be something strange going on, whether it's in the ownership or in the front office, that these guys can't get their stuff together. And again, the majority of this blame is on Kyrie, but there's something wrong in the ownership lines or the GM lines within that organization that's toxic, that is not necessarily being portrayed here. And to me, Joe Tsai was doing everything in his power to let Kyrie Irving know that he was not going to be a Net after this season. Now, at the same time, Kyrie should have played the season out, in my opinion, and earned himself a max deal that he wanted, because the way he had been playing the past 3 months, he kind of put all the anti-Semitic stuff behind him because he's been playing really, really well. And if he had a good postseason, he might have been able to parlay that. But I think he's only hurt himself further by doing this trade request. And we'll see how it turns out in Dallas. But I just think the Nets organizations, there's not many organizations worse than the Sixers, but the Nets may be one of them.
Well, Kyler Murray probably called him up and was like, bro, you should hear what they wanted me to do in my contract.
Yeah. Well, like
so,
Zion's got weight restrictions, like head injury stuff. Like,
yep.
People have it, but I've never heard of you got to win a championship. Like that's tough,
nuts.
Dude.
Yeah. So the Nets franchise for me feels like when you got the neighborhood, in your neighborhood, you got the furniture store and it says like grand opening. And then like 2 months later, it's everything must go sale. And then 3 months later, it's got a new ownership and a whole thing. It's just a cycle. And you start to wonder, like, is this place a front? Is this like a mob spot, like a mob owned place, or what is this?
They all are.
The Nets have had The Nets have had, I guess, what, Joe Tsai. Before that, you had the situation with what was his name? The Russian guy. Prokhorov. Yeah, you had him and Jay-Z and all those guys. They literally basically gentrified Brooklyn to make it an NBA franchise city. The whole team is fake. Top to bottom, it's been manufactured. To me, it does seem like a front. So to your point, both of you have mentioned it, like something stinks with that organization, with that management and the ownership. I don't know if it's because it's ran by business guys that don't really have sports acumen and they think that they can just do this kind of stuff and it's the norm. I don't know, but it definitely doesn't seem right. And the organization to me has not really been one to take serious for quite some time now, to be honest with you. They always are finding ways to just get in their own way. And now this is the latest example of that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, Chris. Like that was a hell of a job rebranding that organization, making them cool, bringing in Jay-Z. Right. I mean, let's be honest. They bring in Jay-Z as a minority owner. How much do you think he owns of that organization? 0.1%.
It was. If I remember correctly, it was either between 1% and like 6%.
I mean, you think he was the man. You think he was the man with the name on the arena, with how much he was out there. But then it was smart. They rebranded it. They changed the logo. They moved them to Brooklyn. Well, they didn't even really move them to Brooklyn. I mean, but you know what I'm saying? Like it's look, this organization prior to all this was a mess. They had that one run in the early 00s with Kidd and Kenyon Martin and all those guys, and that's it.
Yeah. And not only, I mean, once they moved the team from Jersey to Brooklyn, which seems like yesterday, but in this point, I guess now it's been what, 14 years? How long has it been at this point? Because even with Paul Pierce, when he got traded there and Kevin Garnett, like that was like what, 2011, 2010, something like that?
Yeah, it was 11 or 10. Yeah, you're right. That was 11 or 12. That was around that time. So
it's been a while now.
At least 10, 12 years.
Yeah. And they built up
2012.
Yeah, and I've got folks that live out in Brooklyn. Does Liam live out in?
He's in New York. He's in Manhattan.
Okay. So yeah, my oldest niece lives out there, and it's a whole different place now than it was even like 5-10 years ago. It's constantly changing. Brooklyn Nets are obviously a big part of that, but on the court, like I said, I haven't really been I haven't been concerned with them, and I'm definitely not now. It's just literally, what is it, less than 48 hours from the trade deadline. I'm waiting on the Kevin Durant has requested a trade message from my app to pop up. I think that's the next shoe to drop. And then once that happens, all bets are off. It's the Ben Simmons Nets, and then we can all just have a field day with that.
Well, that's a good transition point to my next question is, where do the Nets go from here? And Chris, I'm kind of with you, although I've been kind of stalking Nets Twitter, and they're like, I don't know if they're senile or what, but they're like all in on trading a bunch of draft picks to get like an OG Anunoby. And they think that like that's the key to contention this year. I don't see a world where this team is a contender. I don't see a world where Kevin Durant's not asking out this summer. I don't think it's going to happen right now. But I think once this flames out, so I don't see how trading 3 first-round draft picks and then losing Kevin Durant is really a good long-term plan. Is there any way this team competes this year?
I think it's funny you say about the Twitter thing. So I saw on Twitter 2 different angles of this. One was, I forget the reporter's name, but he reported that Ben Simmons has 0 trade value right now in the NBA market. But then I saw another tweet.
I'd argue that. I think he has negative trade value.
Well, I saw another tweet that said about the Nets considering trading him to Toronto for Siakam and 3 unprotected first-round picks. And I immediately was just curious to see what would happen with the Raptors fan base as far as what they would think about that. And it was as close to a consensus, unanimous no that I've seen on Twitter. And Twitter is a dark place, and a lot of like folks with weird opinions and stuff like that. But it was as close to 100% no that I've seen, even with unprotected first-round picks. That dude's not worth being in your frame because he's still got 3 more years at 30-something million a pop.
About Ben,
yeah, on that
I
contract.
think it's 2 more years after this one. I think maybe 3.
No,
you might be right.
Either way, it's too many. It's too many.
I mean, you look at it this way. There's rumors, and we'll see what happens at the trade deadline, that OG Anunoby is going to go for 3 first-round picks as it is. So Pascal Siakam is a far superior player than OG Anunoby. So to say that you're only going to give 3 first-round picks and you're going to give him Ben Simmons, which again I think is a negative, that's not near enough for Pascal Siakam. If you ask me.
What picks are the Nets going to give them though? The Nets have the 2 this year, right?
Well, they got a couple from the Sixers.
Right. They have the 2 this year. They don't have one in 2024. They have to swap with Houston in 2025.
But they still have a pick.
But they have to swap if it's better. Right. So I mean, who knows what that's going to be in 2025? The Nets might stink. Right. And then in 2026, they don't have a pick. And then in 2027, they have the Sixers again from the Harden trade.
And I think they actually only have 1 draft pick this year because I think they traded 1 for Royce O'Neal. So I think
they did.
They traded 1 of those picks. So
I'm not sure which one, I forget, but they did trade a first for him.
Yeah. So
and who does that? Who trades a first round pick for Royce O'Neal?
The Jazz get the worst of the picks, so the Nets retain whatever pick ends up being better.
But they're in a tough spot because they have to do something to try and keep Durant around. And
but is trading?
I just don't think they have enough to do it.
That ship has sailed. How the hell are you going to keep him there when every other team in the league would take KD?
But do you like have to? Do you have to make a move to your fan base to try and keep that guy around? That's where they're stuck.
They're apparently making. I was looking earlier. They're having conversations with him on the future direction of the team, which to me says we're trying to beg him to stay.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying I think, especially a guy that already asked for a trade, 8 months ago.
Yeah.
All of a sudden is going to have his, co-star out now, and he's left with what he's left with. And he's already also publicly criticized the bench and certain other guys that are in that lineup saying like, well, like, what do you expect me to do with these guys?
Right.
I really can't see him being on the Nets team by Friday. I'd be shocked if he was on the Nets by Friday, honestly. I don't know where he'll be. I don't know if, I mean, a lot of these GMs out here, they have offers already set up and planned for in case things happen. So I don't think it'll be like a rush to like figure out, well, what can we do to get Kevin Durant? I think that a lot of these teams probably already have packages that they've thought of and they're ready to just make a phone call. But
I think if it's this year, I think it's Phoenix if it happens.
well, speaking of
What, like
which,
Bridges,
What'd you say?
Bridges for what? Bridges and who else?
Bridges, it would probably be Crowder since he's holding out, and maybe like a Cam Johnson, and
Johnson.
then draft picks.
yeah, that's bad, dude.
Unless they, but I don't think I was going to say Ayton, but I don't think they need Ayton with Claxton.
Yeah, he's turned into a guy that they can legitimately start. I'm still not as big on him as you are, but I get that he's
Ayton?
he's a commodity at this point.
I'm
No,
not.
Claxton.
I'm not big on Ayton at all. I don't think.
Oh,
Ayton,
Claxton.
oh, I do like Claxton a lot.
I actually like Ayton, but I get that it's not worth the trade at that point if you're looking, especially the Nets who are going to need defensive players. I mean, they got a lot of offensive players. They need some defense on that team.
That's
So
why they got Ben,
Claxton's
dude.
not. Anyway, like I said, Claxton's not
they
going
got a couple.
anywhere.
No, I disagree because like Claxton's a really good defensive player, and Dorian Finney-Smith, who they got to trade, is a
He's
very
decent.
good
Yeah,
defensive
yeah.
player. Like,
But
I think they got a couple guys, and Ben, for all his warts, can play defense. Like,
have you seen or heard of some of these rumored proposals that Joe Tsai and the Nets management like didn't go with, and they chose the Dallas offer because Tsai apparently didn't want to go to the Lakers, and then the Lakers are saying, "Well, we didn't want to trade Max Christie and Reeves with a first for." I'm like, "Are you on drugs for
Yeah.
Kevin Durant?"
no,
I'm sorry,
it was for
Kyrie Irving. I meant to say, like, what?
Yeah, I mean, I listen. I don't know. Again, this comes back to Nets ownership, but like, who leaks the trade offers that they've rejected?
Right.
And again, that could come from whoever, like coming from a different source, but I don't understand if that's good business. I did see that Phoenix had the Chris Paul on
Right.
the deal, which
And I'm doing that off like you call and offer me Chris Paul and what was it, Crowder?
yeah,
For it, with the Nets being in the situation they're in, having Durant and still having one last hope of trying to be a championship contender this year, I make that deal.
yeah. I think Paul may be shot, but
Let me ask you this. Let me take it back to KD. If you're Boston sitting where they're at right now, currently in the standings, with the way they're playing ball, Jalen's been a name. Jalen Brown's been a name that they've shopped in the past. Would you do that if you're Boston? Would you do
I
that?
wouldn't.
I
think
don't think
they're
that's
the team to beat with them. Like, why ruffle it up and risk the chemistry issues that could come about? Because does Durant make them a better team on the floor? Sure, but they're good enough as is, and you just don't. I wouldn't mess with that chemistry because Durant can be a little bit of a polarizing kind of dude.
and I don't even know if he really like Jalen Brown. First of all, he's a lot younger, but he's also he can like he has games where he can pop off offensively, and he's a good defender too. I think he's a solid defender. Like I don't know, like you're going to lose a lot on both ends of that trade. I think.
No, you're not going to lose. But
No. I'm sorry. I meant to say as far as like you're going to lose the value of defense if you trade Brown. And are they still the number one defense in the league?
they're up there. I don't think they're number. I think Cleveland's the one.
Cleveland. Okay. So, but yeah, I mean, being the number one seed right now, I don't think you want to touch that to that extent. With a blockbuster at that point. If they were in the middle of the pack, maybe. But I don't know why. I mean, and who's to say that Tatum and Durant fit together? I don't know.
Right.
I mean, at least Brown has already had that.
Well, but KD's went to a Golden State and fit right in.
Yeah, but the other thing I would be wary. The other thing I'd be wary of, and I remember this was somebody said this last year when the Sixers traded for Harden. There hasn't been a team. I wish I had I think it's been since the '95 Rockets that have made a major acquisition at the trade deadline to go on to win the championship. Like there's just not enough time for all that to click. And I think it was when the Rockets got Drexler. I don't even know if that was a trade deadline, but it's been a very, very long time since somebody's made a major, major trade at the deadline and won the championship. It just hasn't happened.
Well, it might have been. Was it Barkley? Did Barkley go from Phoenix to Houston?
He didn't win a championship though.
Yeah, Barkley didn't win the championship. That was
Oh,
Adam's
that's right. He
Adam's
was
saying they
after
had to
that.
win a
That's right.
championship.
You're right. You're right.
We'll look
Um,
that up and get that corrected.
Does it change your mind at all that Jaylen Brown only has 1 year left after this year and KD has 3? So you would potentially have a KD Tatum combo for the next 3 years after this?
Well, you'd have Brown, like, I don't know what the rule is with that officially with the NBA as far as wouldn't with the salary cap and the luxury tax and stuff, wouldn't they be able to still do that based on him being a drafted player and all that
When you
crap?
start talking about
yeah, they could still sign him. He would have to, unless he wanted to leave, which I
Right.
don't know why he would, but
Right.
I'd take the risk with Brown and just max him out. Like if he's going to leave after you win X amount of games, then so
let him
be it.
walk.
And again, like Durant's not coming without injury risk and age. You know, again, I think Durant will be fine, but who's to say 3 years from now he's still the same player? You
What
could
about the
argue that
Heat?
Jaylen Brown would be better than Kevin Durant 2 years from now.
What about the Heat as a team that would make a run at Durant? Because we had heard Miami mentioned in the summertime with him and Phoenix and Miami were the top 2 that he wanted to go and all this stuff. Miami is like on the low doing what Miami does and getting better as the season goes. Do you think that they could realistically make a move of some sort? I don't know what it would take for them to pull the trigger on that as far as their personnel is concerned. I don't think anybody wants Lowry's old ass, but I could be wrong.
They already traded Dwayne Dedman earlier today, Chris. So they don't have much left in the chamber.
Right. I was gonna say. and like what go on. I'm just thinking while we've been talking. Give me a trade that the Nets have won in the last 10 years.
I mean, I can do one time.
I don't think. I mean, every big trade that they've done, they've lost. They took the L on. Even back in the day when they gave up all the draft capital and everything else to get Garnett and to have Paul Pierce and all those guys, they didn't end up winning the championship. And the draft, those guys retired and the draft picks were gone. The Ben Simmons trade, you traded James Harden for Ben Simmons. Ultimately, that was a joke. You just traded Kyrie Irving. Now, granted, allegedly, with the whole situation playing out as we saw through the media, Kyrie was asking out, so they didn't really have a choice as much with that. But I mean, Harden asked out too. So, but every move that they've made, they don't win. They don't win these trades.
No,
and they keep setting them back. Every time they take a step forward, they take 2 steps back.
Darren Williams, they brought him in. He wasn't any good anymore.
Dude, I forgot all about that. That's that's a good. I forgot all about that.
So I do have the 2 trades, the most recent trades, and you could argue. I would say this is a major move. 2004, the Pistons got Rasheed Wallace and won the championship. Right. But again, Rasheed came in as like the number 4 option on that team, as good as he was. And then in '95, the Rockets did trade for Clyde Drexler at the trade deadline.
Okay,
Adam, I know you were just doing that research while Chris was asking that question. I'm surprised you didn't mention Jason Kidd. I mean,
but that's before the season.
Is Chris? No, Chris is saying Nets trades like in the history of the franchise.
I mean, that's 20 years ago.
But he's saying in the history, he said a big trade hasn't really worked out. But to me, that was the one that came to my mind immediately. Was they were able to unload Steph Marbury for Jason Kidd.
Yeah, I mean, I kept thinking of Brooklyn. That's where
That's what I was thinking about. Brooklyn.
That trade was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, we're 37 years old.
that trade did work. Jason Kidd for Stephon Marbury straight up. Definitely worked out as the Nets went to 2 straight championships.
It definitely wasn't a trade that you would like for winning in the NBA. Yeah, but as far as like the fun aspect of it, Marbury was Marbury was a fun dude to watch, man. I love watching that dude play.
It's a fun dude if you liked losing.
Well, I didn't say. I said it wasn't about winning, more about just the style points. But yeah, I mean, if you want to win games, obviously, Kidd is a better point guard for you to win. But
pride of Georgia Tech.
Speaking of winning, I want to close out this segment by touching on Dallas a little bit. Do we like the fit of Kyrie in Dallas? Is Dallas the team to beat out west? Who do you like out west? Like the West is a complete crapshoot. So I guess we can start with. I mean, go wherever you want with it. The fit. Do you like Dallas now more than you did before? Where are you at with the Mavs?
Go ahead, Chris.
I don't like this trade at all for either team. I'll be brutally honest with you. I don't know if it's a hot take or not. I don't know, but I'm really concerned with the fact of Kyrie and Luka both being alpha ball handlers in an offense, and I'm wondering, and I can't wait to see how it plays out with end of game situations or second half playoff games. why should Luka take a step back to Kyrie Irving? He is a better player. He is their franchise player. He is a homegrown player from, being drafted by that organization. There's no reason why Luka should have to change anything for Kyrie Irving. And the Mavericks have come out and said, like, just because we traded for this dude does not mean we're prepared and already ready to give him an extension.
Right.
So I think this is a trial, but they didn't really give up a lot to have the trade. In my opinion, I don't think that the trade was a huge trade for what they gave up to get Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it like Irving slides into Dinwiddie's spot, and he's an upgrade there. It's just from a pure basketball standpoint.
Right.
Durant Finney-Smith is a loss. Like, they'll feel that on the defensive end, but I don't think that's a guy you blink at when you have a chance to pick up, again, assuming it works out. But I agree with you, Chris. I'm not a huge fan of the fit. I mean, Kyrie has played alongside some of the best players we've ever seen. Obviously, LeBron. He's played alongside Durant, but none of those players were lead guards. And Luka is ball dominant, and I'm very, very curious to see how that works. Like you said, in crunch time, who's got the ball, who's standing on the side. And I'll be curious to see how it fits with Luka. And defensively, I don't think they're going to be very good. They don't have interior.
They got worse defensively.
And they are going to be worse defensively. At the same time, it's probably worth the risk, like you said. Like, at the end of the day, they didn't give up a ton, and they needed to make a move to put something else besides Luka, because the guy is working his tail off to get them where they are, currently 5th place in the West. And the West is wide open.
I'm trying to look at this from the perspective of somebody who is a flat earther, anti-vax, and non-Jewish, and a Dallas Mavericks fan. And if I check all those boxes, I like this trade.
This is awesome, right?
I like this trade because, let's be honest, were the Mavs going to win the title before this trade?
No.
No, so. Right? Now, look, are they going to win the title after this trade? Probably not, but at least it's something different. Like, you've seen half of a season with the squad that they had out there, and it wasn't working. So, okay, let's bring in a guy like Kyrie, who is, again, in my opinion, I said this earlier, in my opinion, a top 3 point guard in this league when he's playing at his best. He does things with the ball, and he's clutch in ways that not many players are in this league. And I get that he does some of the things well that Luka already does well, but if he can defer, which I think he's shown he can do. He's played with LeBron, he's played with KD, he's played with Harden, he's played with all these stars. I think if he can defer and still provide a spark to this Mavericks team, it's going to be a spark that was bigger than the one that Spencer Dinwiddie was providing. Right. So you got to mix things up, man. You got to have a 2-headed, if not 3-headed monster in the NBA. And that's what he gives them.
And who do you like out West? Like, who do you think who's winning the West?
Right. And I
exactly
think
right.
the Mavericks were probably like, let's offer them this and see what they like, throw against the wall, see if it sticks. And they were like, you got it. And they were like, shit. All right. Well, I guess we got Kyrie Irving then. You know what I mean? And this is what we gave up for him.
And we've talked about this with the Sixers, about how the Sixers defensive backcourt, we're in trouble as far as the backcourt on defense. Who's guarding these two?
Right.
Yeah, but also you could argue, who are they guarding?
Yeah, I get it, but man,
they're going to be able to score.
Yeah, the offense of that team is going to be crazy, man. Like, I don't like who out West. What 1-2 combo is guarding them? Like that. This is a nightmare now for Kings fans. Could you imagine a Kings Mavs first round matchup?
I think Dallas will be above that, but I think you're right. Like, they're scary to play, and we'll see. Like, every team in the West has major warts. Every team does.
Speaking of the Kings and bad trades, remember that trade back in the day? I forget who it was, and Divac was the GM, and he's like, we had a better trade offer on the table, but we didn't take it. And the reporters were like, wait, you're saying you had a better offer, but you took this offer? He's like, yeah, we had a better offer, but hey, what do you want me to do?
Another disaster.
That was the best.
But
those brothers were running the team?
Yeah, Maloofs.
The Maloofs.
Yeah. But I'll close it out with this from Dallas' standpoint. I think Mark Cuban was searching, because I'm not sure if you guys know this. At the All-Star, right around this time last year, Jalen Brunson went to Mark Cuban, and they had an extension on the table, 4 years, $55 million. And Dallas said, we're gonna hold off and see what happens. Jalen Brunson goes and has a monster playoff, turns into $100 million. And wouldn't you rather have Jalen Brunson, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Spencer Dinwiddie on your team than Kyrie Irving at this point?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
And
that's
speaking of dominance, another person in this equation dominant is Mark Cuban. And Kyrie, if he tries any mess with the Mavericks, I don't think Mark Cuban's going to hesitate to be like, bro, that ain't happening in my organization.
I
So
mean, look, if
I think
Kyrie's
that,
trying to get that max, he's gonna have to be on his best behavior for the rest of the year. He has to.
One
not
more
making-
nugget I just pulled up. The remaining strength of schedule for Dallas is pretty low. It's 21st in the league.
So it'll be interesting come playoff time. Like I said, I mean, if you had to pick a team to come out of the West right now, who you picking Denver?
I like Denver. I hate.
You're a big Jokic
I
guy.
hate. No,
You
I'm
love
a Den.
Jokic.
No, but look, you know from the show, I like the Nuggets. I don't like Jokic, but I like the Nuggets. So overall, like I like their coaching. I
I do
think
too.
Malone's a great coach. I picked Highland as a sixth man, which ain't gonna happen. But Porter, comeback player, like I like those guys. And like you said, being a crapshoot in the West right now, like they're sitting in a good position.
Yeah, no,
to-
they're
to,
good.
steal one. So.
Memphis talks a lot of shit. They're unproven.
Yeah.
Sacramento
just said today too that they're the most hated team in the league.
Yeah, he's a dork. Like I tweeted back. I said he has the skill set to be the most liked player in the entire league, and it's like he wants to be heel.
Yeah.
He's starting to go to that school, Kevin Durant, the school heels.
Yeah, but just running down the rest of the West quickly. Sacramento scares nobody in the playoffs.
Nope.
The Clippers are you're like waiting for them to put it together. Like Paul George,
They-
Kawhi, can they stay healthy for a couple months? I don't know. Dallas, we talked about. Phoenix is like whatever, like they're okay. Golden State, it seems like a lost year with Curry getting hurt again.
Yeah.
And you have Minnesota, New Orleans, like there's somebody win it.
I guess
it's go ahead, Al, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I guess if Zion ever comes, but I mean, is he gonna come back? Is he gonna be healthy again this year?
Yeah, they said like 2 more weeks, so maybe after the All-Star break, but they're 28 and 27 now. They're in ninth.
No, I know. But I feel like the West is a conference this year where like you can come out of the West with a 6 seed.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters who wins the West. I think whoever wins the East is going to win.
Yeah, it's nice, dude. It's nice. This is the first time in how long where the East is better than the West definitively. Like I feel like all of Philly teams play in the inferior conference.
I feel like the NBA right now is the Sixers, the Bucks, the Celtics, and then put together whoever you want in the West, but that's it. Like I don't think I think there's 4 or 5 teams tops that have a chance to legitimately win a title.
None of us answered Adam's question, so I will, and I'll say Memphis.
Oh, what was the question?
Who are you
again?
picking
Who's
to
gonna
come
win
out of the West right now?
I'd take Denver.
I'll go with my preseason picks, so I'll say the Clippers.
All right. So we all have 3 different answers. Boston's winning the East. Boston, Milwaukee. You can say Philly if you want. Come playoff time, like I don't trust the Sixers in a series against either of those teams. Milwaukee's coming on, and Boston's winning. Boston's too good, man. And we'll see them tomorrow night.
Yeah, we'll see tomorrow. Yeah.
Now you know who else we'll see in the starting the All-Star game.
Yeah, Joel.
How about that?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Durant's out.
Durant's out. Yeah.
Do you think Harden gets the nod though?
If he doesn't, there's something's wrong.
So there's 3 guys who have a legitimate case. There were some bad picks on these. Pascal has a case. Harden has a case. Jimmy Butler. They all have cases. They all
Why would Pascal be like legitimately what like aren't they what's their record? Or what are they? The 10th seed?
Yeah, they're not good, but his stats are. I'm pulling up Siakam stats real quick.
Butler's stats aren't great though.
No. Butler to me is exclusively a playoff player. I don't even
he's doing that typical Jimmy Butler regular season.
Siakam's 25, 8, and 6.
Yeah, Harden's got to be on that team. Drew
How
Holiday being on that team is a joke.
Drew Holiday, like I even think like I'm not even gonna say because I'm gonna heat. Like people love Tyrese Halliburton. James Harden's having a better year than Tyrese Halliburton. Like
absolutely,
yeah, absolutely he is. How can Harden be in the little MVP rankings and not be a reserve in this All-Star game? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It's a lot of hypocrisy in the NBA.
Oh, it is. It is. The hashtag the disrespect.
Yep.
Yeah,
for this city, it's palpable.
That was going to be our third segment tonight, the All-Star snub, but the Kyrie stuff had to take it over. Anything else before you guys want to wrap it up for days away from the Super Bowl?
I just want to say real quick, hopefully the next time we meet up, we are Super Bowl champions, and maybe having a report live from maybe we go do a report from the parade.
Man on the street.
Yeah, we'll have to do something like that.
right on the top of a SEPTA bus station.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, listen, I'm excited. I hope it works out for us. We've had nothing but good luck since we started the pod outside of the World Series, loss. It's been nothing but good Philadelphia sports stories. So let's keep the momentum going.
I think the Birds being favored by Vegas is it speaks volumes, man.
But
Why would Vegas ever
And it's
want to
holding.
at Mahomes?
FanDuel said today 75% of the handles on the Birds.
Yeah, that number's holding. And also they always say that the smart money comes in late.
Yeah,
And if that's what you're saying about the 70, what did you say, 75%?
75% on the Birds.
And we're getting closer and closer. So I think smart money is saying that they think the Eagles are going to win. So
It's going to fluctuate though. On Sunday, what will happen is all the big bets on Kansas City will come in, getting the points, and then the line's going to move down, and it'll go to like a pick 'em or something like that, and then it'll steady off, and it might go off as a pick 'em, which I don't remember the last Super Bowl that went off as a pick 'em. That's wild.
yeah.
There
Well, now
was-
that go
Bill
ahead, Charles.
Simmons did something in his podcast about games that opened at a pick 'em because I think this was close, and there was actually more than you thought. I think San Fran and what do you call it? A couple of years ago went off as a pick 'em. San Fran, Kansas City, actually.
Well, now that Charles is off our show from his segment, the Chiefs got no shot in this. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, it's gonna be a close game. It's gonna be fun.
We will catch up with you all next week.
Go
Let's
Birds.
drop that beat.